Okay, so it's been a while since I did another one of these, but this is effectively the next step in creating custom assets for Dota 2, specifically custom game modes. So what I'm going to do is export an existing animation for the hero Axe and apply it to this tutorial version of Jeremy Khan from the custom hero project. Let's just call him Bob for now. So Bob here has already been rigged to Axe's in-game skeleton. You can get that by watching one of my previous tutorials on how to get animations and bind skeletons from Source 2 using Source Filmmaker. I'm not going to be covering that. I'm going to be covering cleaning up the animation, re-importing it, and reusing it for Dota 2 custom game modes. So this is what we do for some of the heroes in the custom hero project, where we will take an existing hero, model a different hero around their animations, and reuse them, because rigging an animation is a huge step in the character creation process, and it's much easier to test custom heroes with new models and new character designs that way by reusing existing animations. It's what we did for Jeremy, it's what we did for Lethal, and it's what we're going to do for a bunch of other heroes, because it is much easier and it's much faster. So, first things first, I'm just going to hide the axe real quick. He's already rigged. Everything is all done. I've just given him a yellow skin texture to differentiate him from Jeremy. This tutorial is also going to cover a rudimentary introduction to the material editor and mostly take place in the model editor tools in Source 2. So, first things first, you want to go to whatever your custom game mode file is. I just have a test bed game mode. This is just for me to make custom assets. There's already a few files here. There's Lethal's files and some various other models. There's Jeremy's files. What we're going to do is, if you're looking for your custom game mode folder, you will find it in the directory from your Steam library, Steam apps, common, Dota 2 beta, content, Dota add-ons, and then the folder of your custom game mode. This can be a little tricky to find because there's a huge mix-up of like different content and add-on folders. It's really, really stupid, but this is the one that you want. So first things first, we're going to make... you could sort these in their own models and materials folders, but it's much easier for me to sort every single individual character in its own folder. So in the case of Jeremy, he's got his own independent models and materials folder. So what I'm going to do is we're going to make Bob. So first things first, we're going to make our models folder, and I'm just going to double check Jeremy, models, heroes, Jeremy. Okay. So Bob, we're going to go models, new, heroes, new, Bob. Doing it this way just makes it easier to package if you're swapping between other people working on the same mod. So this way, instead of having to individually sort through my models and materials folder for other heroes, if I just have this individual hero in their own folder, they can just copy the models and materials into the add-on themselves. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a materials folder to go next to there, and we're just going to copy this models directory and put it in here. So now we have materials, models, heroes, Bob, and then just models, heroes, Bob. Now, obviously, models is going to go in your models folder, and materials is going to go in your materials folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to export this as a usable FBX with some very particular settings. The way Blender exports FBX is finicky. I'm currently using 2.79. It's just the version I like. I haven't gotten around to updating, but it works for what I need. So this whole model on its own, and you know what, we'll include the axe as well. So, no wait, actually no, we're not including the axe. Scratch that. The reason we're not including the axe is so we can customize the weapon that Bob is using later. So what we're going to do is we're going to export FBX. So I have some operator presets. So Dota Custom Hero. So what I have for this preset is we're doing FBX binary. Main, in main, you've got selected object, so it's only the selected object. The scale is 0.01. For some reason, Blender loves readjusting the scale of FBX imports and exports. It's so annoying. Minus Z forward, Y up. Just copy these settings, swap over to geometry, make sure these settings are copied, armature, animation. It's really all you need. So do that, save a preset for it, Dota Custom Hero, or whatever you want to name it, and we're going to save this out to our working custom heroes folder. We're going to name them bob.fbx. All right, so now we got his model exported. Oh wait, I'm gonna re-export this with his skeleton selected as well. I keep forgetting that. So tap A to select all, as you normally would. Export FBX, presets, custom hero. Just make sure it's all there, and just re-export it again. Okay, so I'm going to my working folder, which is Jeremy's folder, which I have Bob FBX. I'm going to copy him. And we're going to bring Bob into the models folder. Models, heroes, Bob, and paste that there. Now, we're going to go to our materials folder, materials, models, heroes, Bob, and we're going to go back to our working folder. I'm going to copy this texture that I've made, Jeremy_tutorial color. He's just a yellow version of Jeremy. We're going to go Jeremy tutorial color, and I'm going to copy the specularity mask, the self-illumination mask, the rim mask, the normal map, the metalness mask, and the base tint mask. These are all the shader masks. Oh, hit the mic for a second. These are all the shader masks for Jeremy. I'm just going to reapply them to Bob. And doing each individual mask for like a hero shader is going to be covered with Material Editor as well, so you know how to properly set up the textures for your models so they look really nice and just the way you want them to be. So I'm going to copy all of these. I'm going to go to Bob's Materials folder and paste them in here. Just going to copy over. All right, now we should be all ready to get started. So, first things first, you're going to launch Dota 2 with your item tools, and you're going to select your custom game mode in the game modding tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this little stick figure up here. This is the model editor. We click the model editor. It'll open up this load recent file list. What we're going to do is we're going to click new vmdl from mesh file. Now it's important that this is in the directory that we made earlier. If you load it from like a working folder on your desktop or something, it's not going to work. It needs to be in the Dota 2 add-ons folder. So we're in the test bed. We're going to go to Bob, models, heroes, Bob, bob.fbx. It's going to ask to create the MDL. You're going to confirm. There we go. So that's going to close. It's going to load it up, and then it's going to immediately crash the model editor. But the model has been compiled. Now you see it has no materials, so it uses the error texture, which is just coloring this wireframe this bright blinking red. First off, we're going to fix that, but we don't have any textures to apply to them. So what we're going to do now is going to go to the material editor, and we're going to hit new. First things first, we can't really start previewing this until it's saved. So once we create a new, we have to save it as something. So it's going to default to the materials, models, heroes, Jeremy folder. This is the last one I used, but instead I'm just going to go up to the parent directories until I get back to my test bed. I'm going to click Bob, go to his materials, models, heroes, Bob, and we're going to save this as Bob_color. So this is the color VMAT. for Bob. We're going to save that. And now we can preview it, which is great. Now, first things first, the material editor does have a lot of stuff to deal with. Attributes, we don't really mess with attributes. We simply stick with variables. These are all the individual texture maps that you're going to be applying to your model. Now, you've got your properties over here, which allow you to choose what kind of features you want on your material, such as normal maps, two-sided rendering, translucency, solid color, specularity, scroll UV, overlays, full brights, vertex colors, tint masks. There's so many different options here in Source 2. It's a really, really versatile tool. However, we just want we want to we don't want to like tick all of these individually. Valve has included a series of shaders that we can very quickly load up, and we're going to select the hero shader. There's a bunch of here for like sky models, the water shader, refraction, multi-blend, whatever that is, ice surfaces, grass tiles, cables, crystals, so many different shaders that they use for different materials for like environment models, but what we want is hero. So double click that, and it loads in all the default maps that we need. So first things first, we're gonna load the color texture that we uploaded. So first we're gonna open the texture browser by clicking on this magnifying glass. Now, bit of a spoiler alert, you can see some existing textures here for other characters we worked on. There's the Dullahan that we've been working on in secret. Shh, there's your little preview. Lethal's texture is here. The Mr. Midas textures are all here, if you're a fan of him. And Jeremy's color is here, but what we want is Bob. So we're going to click this Jeremy tutorial color that we loaded into our materials folder earlier. So let's load that in. So you double click that, and you should see it tile on this little preview sphere. Now, to maneuver this little preview sphere, you hold Alt and left click to rotate it, middle mouse to pan, and right click to zoom. You can also like use just the right mouse button to like orbit the camera a little bit. But yeah, it's more or less the same as Blender, just using the Alt key instead of Shift. So here we can sort of see a preview of how the texture will look on certain surfaces with certain lighting conditions. But that's not good. That doesn't really tell us a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the normal map here. Kind of click that, and we're going to load the normal map that we have for Bob. So by default, it's going to search for _normal files. I'm going to type in Bob, so we simply just get the Jeremy textures in Bob's folder. So we're going to load that in. And now, we still don't see any lighting definition, simply because by default, in the shader masks, self-illumination is turned all the way up. So we can't actually see the masks yet, because we need to turn them on. So over here in Properties, by default, masks 1 and 2 are not turned on. We want to turn on both of these. So now, the lighting's changed ever so slightly. So by default, it turns all of mask 1 onto full, and it turns mask 2, rim mask and tint to full as well. So what we're going to want to do is now fill these in with their appropriate shader masks. You can figure out what each of these individual shader masks do on the workshop, the Dota 2 workshop tutorial information pages. They have this really nice breakdown of what each individual mask does and how it alters material definition and rendering. So first things first, we want the detail mask. So we're going to find that. We're going to click Bob. We don't have a detail mask, so I'm just going to use the self-illumination mask. What the detail mask is it lets you have like scrolling texture effects. So whether like Chaos Knight's scrolling fire along his body, or the water that scrolls along Morphling's textures and his model. You see these a lot in Arcanas. They're very, very subtle on most heroes, but they are very prominent on Arcanas. So diffuse, we don't use a diffuse warp mask most of the time, so we just like to leave that alone. Metalness, backspace metalness, type in Bob. Let's find Bob's metalness mask. It's right here. Metalness alters the way metallic surfaces are rendered to make them appear more metallic and look less like plastic. It's really good. And we can also tie a cube map to it. So cube maps are something that I might explain later in a tutorial that looks into the material editor more in depth. But first, I'm just going to apply so the other masks. Apply the self-illumination mask. Now, there we go. Now we can actually start seeing some stuff. So by default, self-illumination is set to full bright. So everything is being illuminated. So you don't see any shadows or shading definition. But now we can sort of start to see the light deform to the normal map. So now we're going to add Bob's Specular Mask. Where are you? There you are. Jeremy Spec Mask. Now we're going to add the Rim Mask. Find the Tint Mask. And Specular Exponent. I don't think I made a Specular Exponent mask. I think I just reloaded the Spec Mask. Sometimes you can just reload the same mask twice in Specular and Specular Exponent, and you might get the same results you want. Or you could just make it a solid color. I'm actually going to turn that back to a green and see what it looks like. No real difference, so I'm just going to reload the texture. So now that we have all that loaded in, I'm going to save this, and he's done. All the textures and materials. Give that a second. There we go. Okay. So that's done. I'm going to close that. So we have Jeremy's VMAT now saved here. Or, well, Bob _ color that VMAT. So we're going to go to Bob's model. He still has nothing applied to him, so let's double click and open him up. Show grid. Okay, so just to make sure I have my scale right, click show grid. It should be this small on a character. So that's good. So first things first, he does have a skeleton. He's got a mesh, and his material is just an error right now. So first things first, we're going to go to model, and we're going to click add material group. We're going to go here. We're going to click this little plus symbol to expand it. We're going to click default, and over here, expand this, and it just has a null value for its VMAT. So we're going to click this this magnifying glass, and we're going to click Bob. Because it's just the first thing that shows up. And click that, and we're going to assign that to the material. But he's still not shaded. So what we need to do now is click Model, and then add Material Remap. What this does is that it will automatically, it basically finds its material group and it will always map it to this model. I'm not entirely sure what exactly the details of that are, but we click the remap list, click on this, and we're going to click this little asterisk. What this does is that it selects, it basically is, I don't know why there are all these null fields, but it's usually the asterisk that is what we want to replace the material. So we open local browser, click this, there we go. Now it assigns the material to Jeremy, and if we look around, we can see, oh, he's all lit. This is whenever you make adjustments to your material in the material editor, they will update in real time to the model browser. So that way you can tweak various settings. You can choose if you want to see the wireframe again for like animation issues, you can always click this little gear and like turn on the wireframe. I like to just keep the grid on. But yeah, one thing you can also do is click the shading tab up here, go to render mode, and you can also click in-game hero viewer, and that sort of changes the lighting to something that's a little more accurate to what you see in-game. But setting it to default will let you see what it looks like normally. So yeah, here's Bob in all his glory, and that just about covers creating and loading models to the model editor and applying materials to them. So you could drag this into your custom game mode or whatever, like as is. But the next part of the tutorial is going to go over exporting animations and cleaning them up. So I've gone on for about 20 minutes now, so I'm going to cut this here and upload a second part to continue on with this tutorial.